This is one of my very favourite acting books. This is where my understanding of acting technique and process started. And as you can see, there are lots of pages marked and notes that I constantly refer to or have done so over the years. And in one of the chapters entitled Concentration of Attention, there's information about what Stanislavski calls circles of attention. And that's what I want to explore today in the 11th segment of Talking Acting for 2022. So Stanislavski points out, and he illustrates this in a stage environment, of course, because he was a theatre director. He illustrates this, that there are what he calls first a small circle of attention. And the small circle of attention is you, your head, things immediately within your context, circumstances. Like this book is within my small circle of attention. And if I'm examining the work I should be doing on my fingernails, then that's a small circle of attention. But he also refers to it, what he calls solitude in public. That thing where you're focused inside your head is the way that I would describe it. And that interested me because that experience is different from that circle of attention, because when I'm focused on things inside my head, they can be things that were far away or in the past, or they can be moments of embarrassment or something that I'm reliving or reassessing. And consequently, that seems to me to be a different experience to a focus of attention, a circle of attention. But he also explains that there's a medium circle of attention, which would be numbers of items of furniture in the room. And in his example that he's illustrating on stage, he puts all the lights up so you can see the whole room and maybe even what's beyond. But I was reading this chapter once, sitting in the playground at Kalorama Oval, looking at the view opposite me. And in that context, I realised that my circle of attention can be on that horizon. But my sphere of concentration, I'm calling it, can be on something that's going on in my head. And so it helped draw that distinction between what I see as a circle of attention or another sphere of concentration that I go to. And one day, when I was walking to the shops, a tram thundered by me. And as I looked at it, I saw this huge face of comedian Dave Thornton and thought, oh, great, Dave's got a big promotional campaign going on. But I also thought, and I cannot tell you why, of an incident when I was 13 years old and I nearly died, or might have nearly died. Because on that occasion, what I did was something that my mother had trained me never to do, was to get off a bus and go in front of the bus to cross the road. And I decided, foolishly, to do that this day. And as I stepped out onto the road from the front of the bus, a car went by. And another 2 feet, and I would have been seriously injured, or maybe dead. Now, why that popped into my mind in the moment that tram rushed by and I saw Dave Thornton's picture, I have no idea. But it was definitely another sphere of concentration that my mind went to in that moment. So what's the relevance of this to our performances, to your acting? Well, the first thing that I think is important to consider is that if you had been on the street in that moment looking at me as my circle of attention went to the tram, and it's interesting, I just discovered I'm looking to my right, which was where it was on the day that it happened. But you would have seen my circle of attention go to the tram and watch the tram go. And you may have seen some other tiny level of complexity flicker by. May have. But you would have had no idea what I was thinking about in that moment. How could you possibly? Now, this is absolutely relevant to the actor, because it is common for actors to put a huge amount of effort into building intense prehistories that are associated with various things. And the reality is that when you build a prehistory moment like that, for example, that it can have a powerful effect inside the actor's mind, like reverberates. But it gives little or zero information to the audience. So you have to be careful, beware. Building a world that you want to connect to, that you are inspired to connect to, but doesn't actually communicate to the audience, is not going to further the story. So how is that other sphere of concentration of value? Well, the first thing is that if you are talking to me, but the audience is aware that I'm going to another sphere of concentration. Now, in fact, at the moment I'm looking at something different, aren't I? So I could be going to another circle of attention, and that would be different. But if I've gone to another sphere of concentration, because I'm not even aware of what I'm looking at there, I can, and we have this experience in life, even be looking at you while you're talking to me, but I've gone to another sphere of concentration. Then one of the things that does is inform the audience that there is something more important happening in here than what is happening now out there. So that can provide information to the audience, which is story relevant. On the other hand, once they've got that information, if it goes on too long, nothing is going to change, so they'll get bored. So you need to be careful how long you go to another sphere of concentration in terms of how much that is communicating to the audience. But in that moment, the audience will have got a glimpse of other levels of impulses being generated by that other sphere of concentration, and they also would get connected to that, a sense of other complexities that are operating. So there are bonuses, there are pluses for those moments of in another sphere of concentration. But what about circles of attention? How do they go? And where's their value? Well, significantly, as soon as I shift my circle of attention to somewhere different, or away from you in the conversation, for example, then as soon as I do that, then the audience again knows that there's something more important out there. But under these circumstances, excuse me, they can see it. So they know where your other circle of attention has gone, and they can balance the information that gives them as opposed to the importance of the other relationship that my character is engaged in at the moment. So circles of concentration, circles of attention, give different information to an audience, and more concrete information. Now, when I was thinking about this morning, I'm quite excited about this. I was looking out the window and going, okay, so my circle of attention is that big area. But if I saw something specific happening in that area, which maybe would narrow my circle of attention to that activity, and I therefore acquired some new knowledge about circumstances and relationships, then I might shift from that circle of attention to a new sphere of concentration while I now analyse the importance of that to me, and therefore maybe what I now need to do about that new information. So shifts from a circle of attention to a new sphere of concentration can also generate a huge amount of story engagement for an audience. I was pretty chuffed with that because I'd not thought about how those two areas related to one another before. And that's kind of what happens, isn't it? When you go back and look at something old that you've explored before and then put it beside something new that you've discovered and analyse the difference, then your understanding grows. And we have now explored the risks of overemphasising, of overindulging your prehistory concepts, because although they can produce a level of complexity, they are frequently not engaging. Yet, managing spheres of concentration is a basic acting skill because it's a basic and ordinary part of life. I'll be talking acting again next week. Cheers. Do you know specifically what you need to do to improve your acting? When you take those steps, can you immediately see the difference? A professional acting technique brings clarity and confidence to your acting because you can see the difference. Make a start by downloading my free ebook.